Hello, welcome back to the Horror Hour podcast. Today, for the ever so grand return, I will be reading one story titled The Whispering in the Walls. It was an old house, one of those places that creaked with the weight of history and sagged under the burden of forgotten memories. Rachel had never believed in ghosts, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right about the house when she moved in. For generations, the house has been in her family, an inheritance from her aunt she barely knew. She hasn't even visited before, but there was no denying the pull of the property, the isolation, the mystery, the untold stories hidden in the thick, dust coated air. Still, it was hers now, and she wasn't one to back down from a challenge. The first night, it was just a draft. Rachel assumed the house was old, probably full of cracks and gaps where the wind could slip through. But the sound, it was a low, murmuring hiss, like someone whispering beyond the edge of hearing. She thought it was just the house settling, perhaps a mouse in the walls. After all, the house did weird things when they were this old. The second night, the whispers returned. This time they were louder, almost distinct, words, soft, sibilant words. She couldn't make them out, but unmistakable in their cadence. As she laid in bed, the sound came from behind the walls, as if someone was standing right on the other side, speaking in a language just beyond comprehension. Rachel got up, heart pounding, and inspected every room. She checked the windows and the doors, the attic and the cellar. No one, nothing. But every time she turned off the lights and tried to go to bed, the whispers began again. Each night a little more distinct, a little closer. After 3 days, she couldn't take it anymore. She called a local handyman, hoping it was just some critters that had made their home behind the walls. The man, a grizzled fellow named Jim, showed up the next afternoon. He wore a thick pair of work gloves and carried an old toolbox. "Sounds like you've got a ghost, missy," he said, with a crooked grin. His eyes glinted with a mix of amusement and unease. "I don't believe in ghosts," Rachel replied, but there was a tremor in her voice she couldn't hide. He didn't seem convinced. "This old house, some things just don't go away, no matter how many layers of paint you put over 'em." Rachel thought he just was making small talk, but when he started barking, something shifted. As he pried open a panel in the living room, the air grew thick with the sound of something in the walls. At first, Rachel thought it was the house groaning and the wind pushing through the pipes, but then Jim froze. He put his ear to the exposed plaster and held a hand up to silence her. The whispering was loud, unmistakable. They were there was something in there. Jim's face went pale. "I need to get my tools," he muttered, backing away, but never returned. Rachel waited an hour, thinking he'd just gone out to his truck for more equipment. When she went outside, his truck was gone. And the sun dipped low. She realized something odd. She hadn't heard the whispers for a while. That night there was no sound at all. It wasn't until the following evening that Rachel heard it again. But this time it was different. The whispering had stopped being soft. It was sharp and frantic, like something was clawing its way out. She found herself standing in the living room staring at the spot where Jim had removed the wall panel. There around it seemed to shimmer, and the temperature dropped. It felt as though the house was watching her, waiting. Without thinking, she grabbed a hammer and began prying at the wall. The plaster cracked and crumbled under her strikes, revealing a narrow, dark cavity within. Her heart skipped a beat as she peered inside. The small, cramped space far too narrow to fit a person. But what she saw, what she felt, as her fingers brushed against the cold, damp interior, was the unmistakable sensation of something watching her back. In the corner of the cavity, covered in dirt and old bits of plaster, was a stack of yellowed papers. As Rachel carefully unrolled one, she felt her blood run cold. The paper was covered in strange scrawling symbols, no words, just lines that twisted in unnatural directions. It was like nothing she had ever seen before, a language that felt ancient and wrong. Beneath the paper she found it, a cracked mirror. Rachel's reflection was faint, barely visible in the dim light, but she stared at it. Her stomach twisted. Her reflection smiled at her. Didn't look like her smile. It was wrong, twisted. The mirror suddenly felt cold to the touch, like something was sucking the warmth out of her fingers. The whispers came back, louder this time. She could hear them, so clearly now, as if they were coming from inside her own head. We've been waiting for you. We've been waiting for you. Rachel slammed the mirror into the back of the wall, sealing it in the dark again. But the whispers didn't stop. They were in her head now, echoing over and over. And then she could hear something else, something that sounded like footsteps, growing louder, pacing in the dark behind her. The house had never been empty. Thank you all for listening once again, and I hope you have had a marvelous time tonight. And I'll see you all in the next one. And until then,